Hello everyone, my name's Dave Millard. I'm a Professor of Computer Science at the University of Southampton, and it's a pleasure to be back at Narrative and Hypertext, although I'm sorry it's only virtual and I can't be there with you today. In this presentation I want to share some speculations on how large language models and the kinds of AI technologies now familiar to us all will impact text and hypertext. Most speculation in this space is about whether we're heading towards artificial general intelligence, or even superintelligence, but that's not my intention. Instead, I'm asking, what are the consequences of AI where it is now, today, in the systems that everyone in this room is probably already using, at least to some level? I think it's clear that AI is already reshaping our relationship with information, the expectations of our users, and, by extension, what hypertext means in today's world. Technology has always transformed our engagement with text. Think of scrolls enabling longer, sequential works, or the codex introducing nonlinear access, or the printing press standardizing editions and fostering both the notion of the author and copyright. The word processor, mechanical or digital, blurred boundaries between writer and editor and publisher, and made the writing process much more iterative. Hypertext, when it arrived, deepened these shifts, not just through new forms of indexing, but genuine nonlinear reading. Readers could jump, wander, and interact. Text becomes dynamic, mutating before their eyes, and we began to blur the boundary between reader and writer. Over the last 4 decades, our community has wrestled with questions. Who controls meaning? Where are the boundaries of the text? And how should authorship be defined? And hypertext has its own ideology, whether it's Vannevar Bush, who wanted to turn technical prowess to good in the shadow of the mushroom cloud, Doug Engelbart, who talked about augmenting man's intellect, Ted Nelson, who coined the term hypertext and championed radical information connectivity, a vision so ambitious he called it Project Xanadu, or Tim Berners-Lee, this is for everyone. Collectively, their innovations created not only the technical foundations of hypertext, but also an enduring philosophy that champions human agency, creativity, and meaning-making in our relationship with digital systems and text. A sort of existentialism that believes in the power and sovereignty of human beings in the face of digital systems. So, AI is coming, it's already here, and its influence is inevitable. I have 4 speculations about what this means for hypertext. Number 1. The thief of reason. Writing is thinking. Writing helps us process thoughts, develop arguments, and marshal our evidence. It's valuable in itself, a case of what Brandon Sanderson might call journey over destination. There's now a spectrum of responsibility when writing with AI. At one end, the machine produces the entire text based on prompts, bypassing human reflection. On the other end, a traditional human writer. But what are the possibilities in the middle? What's that overlap where human and AI are working together? I think most of us imagine using AI as an assistant, helping us with research, ideation, grammar, or editing, while the human remains the wordsmith. This is the user acting as a poet, choosing their words carefully, maintaining their voice. That tends to be the way that we think about this kind of AI-mediated writing, but it's not the only way. It might not, in the end, even be the most popular way. Another way would be to think of it more of a collaboration with the machine. Here, the human being becomes a potter, shaping the text. They're giving the machine instructions, perhaps a structure or a general argument, refining and iterating, version after version. Both of these methods are valid and effective ways to interact with text, as they both encourage thinking. The more direct approach, the poet, maintains our unique voice and is likely best suited for personal or expressive writing. On the other hand, the Potter method is faster and probably better suited for creating functional texts that require quick turnarounds, like reports or manuals or commercial copy. Nevertheless, both methods preserve the essential connection between writing and thinking. One of the challenges, I think, is that we need to learn to be poets before we can be potters. The skills you need to be a good potter, the kind of critical analysis skills to understand an argument, to see its weaknesses, or the places where things need to be improved, those are the kinds of skills you only develop through doing it yourself, as a poet. And that's a challenge for us as educators, because it means we have to teach our students to be poets, even though they might be really trying as hard as they can to be potters. Number 2. The Sea of Sludge. Or, this is what the media is starting to call slop. It's almost certain that most published text in the future will be AI generated, because it's dramatically easier to produce. This means vast amounts of machine-created text, with humans only as absent witnesses. What does this imply for the text that will be out there? Well, if we're not careful, there could be a drift towards uniformity, a kind of homogenization of writing styles, which poses a threat to diversity of thought. One important task will be teaching our poets how to develop their own unique voices, and, when they become potters, how to maintain and nurture that voice. We'll also face a problem when AI models start eating their own dead. Currently, AI developers can be pretty confident that any text written before about 2020 was human-generated. But as AI-generated texts become the majority, how will future models be trained? This might lead to a freezing of the cultural canon. I've always noticed in Star Trek, when Hamlet appeared on that holodeck and references past great playwrights, we can only see figures from the 20th century and before, not from the 21st or 22nd centuries. I used to think that was just because of when the show was made, but perhaps it's prescient and reflects what AI could do to our culture. Another serious issue is that text will no longer serve as a reliable marker of trust. In credibility research, surface markers like spelling or the sophistication of language or use of domain vocabulary, well, that helps us assess the trustworthiness of a text. That's why a badly written email from a Nigerian prince ends up straight in your junk folder. But with AI, all of that text will be polished. These surface markers will vanish, and our criteria for judging credibility has got to change. We'll need new ways to learn how to trust what we read online. Number 3, the Dialogic Web. I think we are entering a post-document reading world. What do I mean by that? Well, documents are essentially how we package text. They're discrete units with fixed boundaries, and that means there's clear author and curated content. This inherits the principles of the codex and the printing press. When hypertext came along, it began to break down those boundaries, creating soft edges between texts and fostering real intertextuality, along with increased reader agency. As I mentioned earlier, this blurs the line between writer and reader. AI takes this to the next level. While we might still write documents, readers won't read them. Instead, they'll engage through AI interfaces, and they gain full agency. They can abbreviate, summarize, change voice and tone, and reform or reshape the text in their own right. They become their own potters. For hypertext, this means moving from a world where readers expect fixed, contiguous texts with known authors to a sort of post-human cognitive assemblage that's constantly fluid, rechanging and reshaping itself. Number 4, the death of the reader. For whom do we write? When writing documents, we usually have an audience in mind, an implied reader. But if what I just said about the Dialogic Web is correct, readers won't be directly reading our documents anymore. Instead, they'll be reading them through the lens of AI. And that means our concept of the implied reader is really challenged, might even disappear. Are we now writing for all readers, or are we writing for the machine? Much like how someone designing a website often thinks more about search engine optimization than about conveying information to visitors. This brings up further questions. If no one reads the same text in the same way, is there still one text? Where does meaning happen? And who is responsible for it? These are real ethical questions. In 1974, Ted Nelson said, "You can and must understand computers now." He gave us a 50-year head start, but looking at the impact of these technologies, one has to wonder whether we failed to understand machines before they began to understand us. In this community, I think we're in a good place to navigate this new world, and that's because we have some reliable stars to steer by. If you think about our characterization of hypertext from earlier, nonlinear reading, adaptive and dynamic, blurring the boundaries between writer and reader, and those enduring questions about who controls meaning and where the boundaries lie and what authorship means, you'll find those are exactly the same questions AI raises today. AI, however, goes further, breaks those boundaries down even more. That means we already have some of the tools we need to address these problems. We should be asking, what is a hypertextual AI interface? How do we work with machines using what we've learned from 40 years of hypertext research to tackle these challenges and find solutions? And we still have our guiding ideology, a philosophy of system design that privileges human needs, meaning making, and most importantly, agency. We know the kinds of systems we want to build. In this paper and presentation, I set out to speculate about what the current generation of AI will mean for our relationship with text and how that relates to hypertext. I certainly don't have the answers. That's why this is a workshop paper and why I'm not a billionaire. That said, I think we have what we need. It will demand some discipline. Effortless automation is very appealing, yet we must ask people to invest more effort, including those using our systems. We need to educate our students to be both poets and potters, and to help them understand the practices that foster understanding, originality, and agency, because these have real value. The challenge we face is twofold. We must safeguard the uniquely human aspects of writing while evolving alongside the technological transformation unfolding around us. As I mentioned at the beginning, it remains to be seen whether this era of AI capability marks a revolutionary inflection point or is just the start of a longer but no less profound change. Regardless, our conception of text as stable, authored artifacts is giving way to a fluid, generative and collaborative landscape. We must all learn anew what it means to be writers within this shifting world, and Hypertext can help guide us through that process. Thank you very much for listening.